A little over a week ago, if you know Brad is never early. He's never early. In fact, at the last minute, it's like, hey, you know, we're doing this thing, and I think it's time that I show you what we're doing. And we spent maybe 45 minutes, and some of you saw that I wrote an article on LinkedIn with a pretty bold claim. And here was the claim. What I saw today was the best thing that has ever come out of Reynolds since the DMS. And you would say, hold on, that's a pretty long time to make that bold claim. But since there was a leadership change at Reynolds, and we've had members of the Reynolds executive team here, since the acquisition of Gubagoo, since Brad's injection of a new culture into Reynolds, you never know what's going to happen. People have said, and there's no offense meant, but after an acquisition, there would be like, good companies go to Reynolds or CDK to die. You know, that's what they would say, you know. And what does this mean? Not all companies and their leaders survive transition, integration, and sometimes people just cashed out. Today, we want to talk about a unique partnership, what came out of that partnership, and why is it important, especially for those who are trying to master their first-party data, and then what we just talked about, how do we activate that? So before we do that, Brad, a little background, because maybe some people know you just as the Gubagoo guy, but you were an early tech pioneer in automotive. Give us a little background.
Sure. So been in automotive for
Just put that closer.
Been in automotive for about 35 years. My first company that I founded was called Cowboy. We were probably the first web-based CRM system back in the late 90s, which we were acquired by Cobalt. And then I worked with JM Family and DME on the Red Rocket marketing platform for database management before launching Gubagoo. So I've been playing in the data internet marketing field for the last 30 years.
Aharon, little background for people to know, because what you've been able to accomplish in a very short time with Fullpath, which was Auto Lead Star. Some people knew that. But one of the things I've noticed is your ability to pivot and iterate quickly. How did you get good at that? What's your background?
Well, I'd say that aside from my background, many of you know that Fullpath was founded in Israel, and our development and technology culture in Israel is one of just fast iteration, cutting edge technology. What I found was that in the early days of our company, we were able to hire developers in Israel who were as good as the best developers you'll find anywhere in the world, but who in the US, if we wanted to hire them, would be working for other companies and being paid salaries that we wouldn't be able to afford as a startup. So there was this really exciting opportunity there to get top talent and then build and iterate. So I think a lot of our ability and some of the things we've done that have, I think, set the standard for data connectivity, for instrumentation, for how you pull it all together and then activate, really came from just having that amazing developer and technology DNA, which is still core to our company.
Brad, when I started writing about CDPs, you were like, hey, Brian, I know you're writing about CDPs, but man, the stuff that's out there right now has a lot of holes like Swiss cheese. And I'm like, well, Reynolds doesn't have anything. And you're like, well, just wait. Just wait. I'm working on something. Can you share what you're working on? Nope, not going to share. I talked to him about 6 months later, and I'm like, hey, Brad, how are things going? Good, can't talk about it. And I'm like, come on, Brad, come on. You decided to partner with Fullpath on a project, which we're going to see in a minute. What were the gaps that you saw in the products that were out that made you say, hey, I got a vision. The vision's going to fix some problems, and I need a good partner. We'll talk about why that partnership, but what were the gaps you saw?
I think that the biggest and most glaring gap was the fact that you cannot connect the consumer experience with user engagement. You know, all that outbound marketing is amazing, But the definition of a CDP isn't just for outbound marketing. It's a unified data that with it, you can do so much more than just the marketing. And having that marketing information, the enablement of information, connecting back to the user when you're in the CRM tool, when you're in a retail tool, when you're in the omni-channel, it's just as important, if not more important, when you're engaging the customer in real time. So these gaps were glaring, you know, and I think that's when you can get the full horsepower of a CDP. And when you looked outside automotive, you know, it just reminded me of a lot of the fumbles we've dealt with in automotive, from certified programs or connections of systems that won't come together, where outside automotive, it's a much more peaceful environment to be able to bring the data together and let it flow through all the different systems. So those were the primary motives.
Ryan, I'll just add one thing to what Brad said. I think what we talked about yesterday of how CDPs have really become core to marketing automation, and the new seam line, the new frontier, is really sales enablement. And I think that one of the key gaps, you know, that when we were talking to Brad early, was that the sales enablement piece is really, it's really linked almost inextricably with the core systems that the dealer uses with that vast infrastructure. And the gap between the systems that the CDPs that are developing and that infrastructure is really important to solve if you want to do sales enablement, which is big.
So for the dealers here in this room, I'm just sharing nothing to do with the product platform that they're building, but I'm just going to share with you like 18 months worth of hard work trying to get CDPs working for dealers. There's only so much money you can save by fixing marketing. It's true. You can eliminate waste by spraying and praying. You can clean up your data because, you know, you're not wasting money on direct mail, the people who don't own the cars. There's only so much you can save. And it'll be very hard to sell to an executive leader the CDP just for marketing. What we're talking about today, what the Cox team talked about just moments ago, is that if you look at a CDP as a marketing platform, there's some benefits. It will become table stakes, I think Aaron said. You know, that would be like what everyone's going to be using. We see the OEMs doing that now. But what would it be like if you're able to bring that data into an operational function that could change the way every contact, every opportunity, and what I see is completely new revenue streams. Brad, when you set out to operationalize the data, you and I talked, and you said, Brian, should I build our own CDP? And I said, yeah, if you want to wait 3 years to come to market with a product, and then you'd miss the whole boom. Why Fullpath?
Well, it's funny because it was a year ago this week that I came to the show, MRC, and saw all the different vendors. And I think partnerships aren't just who's got the best product. It takes the leadership team. It starts with the leadership team. Teams have to work together. You have to have trust because you can bring in combined resources. What I saw in their product, I liked how it looked. I liked how it felt. I saw the word CDP is so broadly used, so loosely used that it almost becomes blurred every product. So I saw what they have and liked everything about it. But the leadership team recognized that we have ideas we could bring to the table and we could collaborate and build something really exceptional. And so Fullpath was my choice because I thought we could work best with the team and we could bring our resources with theirs and collaborate. And we did it in 8 months.
Wow. Aharon, same thing. Some companies in this room, whether they want to admit it or not, if Reynolds came knocking on the door, they would be scared shitless. They would be like, are they going to buy me? Are they going to crush me? Are they going to be fun to work with? But as we've talked about, since a change of leadership, there's been a new mindset. I think, Brad, you've done a great job of bringing a fresh culture when it comes to software development. When Reynolds knocked on your door and said, hey, maybe we should do something together, what were your thoughts?
So my first thought went back to NADA, well before Brad was there, but NADA maybe six years ago, where I naively entering the industry, meeting people like Kevin and others and talking about tech, and I went up to the Reynolds booth at NADA, And I found someone there, and I said, hey, we're this new startup, and we're building all this connected technology. We'd love to just integrate with you guys. Can we get your APIs? And so the woman at the booth was like, well, so first of all, the answer is no, you will never get our APIs. But secondly...
Does that sound familiar to anybody?
Secondly, if you want to go through our certification process to get what you can, it's a 9-month waiting list, and then we'll assess whether you could fit. So for us, our time horizons are in the span of days and weeks and months. I was like, oh, Reynolds is another thing where we're going to stay away from that right now. It was so interesting because that was sort of my last major impression, even though we've had good interactions with Reynolds ever since. When Brad approached us and said, hey, we want to do this, I was kind of like, well, how are we going to do that without waiting 9 months? And he was like, no, everything's different. We're like fast, we're innovative, we're looking to be innovative, we're looking to partner. Fullpath, we weren't looking to get, as you said, acquired or anything. We just want to build. And I was blown away because on the one hand, I went to Reynolds and I went to their museum in the basement where I saw all their mainframes with and the people there can literally take chips apart and tell you what's on every single circuit board. Yet at the same time, they're partnering at 120 miles an hour with our dev team and doing it amazingly. And the people there couldn't be more innovative, open-minded, flexible. They've opened up all their, some of the complex data they have. It's really been incredible. So I've been super happy. Our developers, our product team are super happy. And it's been amazing to kind of see this new version of Reynolds that I think probably existed always under the surface, but people weren't aware of it. It's definitely come to the forefront now.
So now that we're done hugging and kissing, in a socially appropriate context, Brad, you said, Brian, here's what I built, a unified intelligence engine. And I'm like, UIE, another acronym. Come on, Brad, couldn't you just call it a CDP or something? We're going to take a look at what you built and what it looks like. But what do you mean by this unified intelligence engine? Because we're not just talking about activating data for marketing. It's a bigger picture. What is different about what you've envisioned with this platform?
Sure. So UIE, the Unified Intelligence Engine, it's a very big data playbook, right? It's not just a CDP, right? We have taken a lot of the data from all of our different companies, plus within all the different dealer groups. And we've been able to unify everybody's customer record within the group so that when we take first-party data from all of our sources, we have some of the most richest first-party data possible from behavioral, demographic, transactional, so that we now have an intelligence engine where when we connected to our direct-to-dealer CDP partner, Fullpath, we're able to inject a unique identifier that could consume data from hundreds of different touch points into the CDP. So that's the horsepower, the gasoline that will supercharge the effectiveness of the marketing. But the power of that is the results that come back and being able to re-inject that back into our intelligence engine so that it can share the results through our CRM, through our DMS, through our different back office systems. So when our users are logging in and engaging consumers on their own time period, that information is being shared with them at the time they're opening up the records. So it's not just about the outbound marketing. It's about the connectedness of the experience. It's about engaging the user at the time with the connected experience. And that's where it all started from, quite frankly.
So I think we have a video that is going to announce a product name. So our team in the back, would you just play that short video? Look how seamless.
You have data here, and here, and here, and here, and here, and here. You might even have something you call a CDP. But it still doesn't unify all of your data. It's basically limited to outbound marketing. But what if the technology was available to collect data from every source, normalize it, unify it, and then act on it? Yes, your marketing is more effective. But so is your sales follow-up, and your chat conversations, and your in-store workflow. It would completely change how your customers experience your store and how your employees sell. Every interaction feels perfect, almost like it's been curated specifically for your dealership. Introducing the industry's first unified intelligence engine, Curator.
So Curator, why the name Curator, and don't tell me it's based on a Greek philosopher or something like that.
I'm not that smart.
Okay.
No, or cultured. No, Curator, it's all about taking that information and using it appropriately, right? Shaping it the way you need it, whether it's through the messaging or pushing it back into different back office systems so you connect the consumer experience. You're curating every time you use a CDP. You're curating the data every time you access it through your systems. So I was just glad that Reynolds and everybody agreed to use it.
Which is a political miracle, so congratulations. Let's talk about the partnership in Fullpath. From what I understood is Reynolds Data Systems are using the Fullpath consolidation, your pixel, to create this unified record. Fullpath allows audience segmentation, unlimited audience segmentation. Reynolds is doing the heavy lifting of bringing all the data into this core Fullpath tech. Aharon, explain for the dealers here in this room who may be a Reynolds customer, does that mean that Reynolds has to do their marketing, or is it, no, our tech empowers audiences and the dealer can use any agency they want to activate on the marketing side? Because we're going to talk about the CRM piece and stuff, which is a Reynolds play, but what part are you enabling with Fullpath tech?
So part of what we're enabling is some of the instrumentation to get the data from, we're agnostic. We connect into everything. Doesn't matter what company you are, what system you are. Reynolds Focus users, for example, might be using a different website provider and a different email provider and a different chat provider, different this, that, the other thing. We can integrate with all of that and bring that data in. We then also help with some of the sort of back in the headquarters where all the data is being sorted and processed. We help with some of the structuring and audience data. And remember what Reynolds is bringing in, if you think of imagine auto as like a landscape, right? Reynolds is one of the huge mountains in the background with 90 companies, or I don't know how many companies Reynolds actually has, some huge amount of companies with all their data. So all that has to come in, and not all of it's relevant right now, but down the road, because this is so integrated, it could be relevant. I'll give two examples that I think show, and by the way, yes, you can use whatever marketing you want. You could choose to just use the UIE, or you could go and expand it and use the activation tools based on some of our stuff, some of Reynolds stuff along with it. Now, two examples. Just imagine on the marketing side, because we're going to soon talk about the enablement side, imagine a Gubagoo chat where the chat is aware of a lot of information about the customer. Now, I talked about this already for years. You've talked about this for years. If the chat knows what vehicle they've looked at, what maybe their best offer is, the best special right now that could be relevant, what color car they typically like to buy, that can become really powerful when it shows up in the chat in a way that's organic. That's just one of the small little things that are sort of on the roadmap of a connected ecosystem. Another thing to think about is, like, I always think about a pilot helmet, in the Air Force, right? They have this heads-up view of so much information about what's going on around them. This UIE, because of how you're going to see it integrated, gives everyone at the dealership, for their relevant touch point, a heads-up view of what's happening around that customer that they're engaging with. So there's all these interfaces between the two technologies, and it's been just great to see how it can work when you actually take down the walls.
So I'm going to ask Brad to go through some slides and show you what this looks like. I just want to set context. In the last 18 months, I've been talking about the need for CDPs and unified data, and many of those use cases, fairly, have been for marketing. What we're seeing at this conference is the next gen step. You saw it just moments ago with Cox, integration in VIN, these dashboards. And people have been saying, well, where's Reynolds? Like, where's Reynolds in this conversation? And I want to be contextually accurate. I don't sell any products for anyone. But Reynolds CRM has not been in many people's conversations. Just the truth. Like, I don't know many people who say, oh, I use Focus CRM. After I saw this presentation and the integration, I said, holy shit. Like, if I was a Reynolds DMS customer, I may completely change my mindset, because it's not about marketing. That's going to come second. It's like when you change sales enablement, almost like the CRM isn't important. It's what data is available for my team to see inside a customer communication platform. Just be open-minded to say, are we seeing from our most robust, largest tech companies, the final thing that dealers have been asking for, when are you going to connect all your shit together to make my life easier? We're seeing that at this conference, and especially when you sit down with some of these executives. It's coming. This is the turning point, I believe. So Brad, with that in mind, you have some background, and then you want to show what it looks like.
Sure. So I think the first thing that I'd like the world to understand is the design principles for Curator. We recognize in going into this vision plan that data is king. We know that cookies have some sort of shelf life. We know that we need to break the data silos. And it's important that we get our hands around it, which is why the Unified Intelligence Engine came to life. We also recognized another big weakness that we could help solve for was creating that connected consumer experience with back office, so that at the time your users, your employees are logging into your systems, that information's available and accessible. The third is a smarter and more effective and efficient way to market and engage people. Not just for marketing, but engage them by phone, engage them by text, whatever channel is available. And third, access of the information and the data made easy. These are...
Which has not been Reynolds' strong point for the last 20 years.
Right, yeah, I mean, listen, it's like last time I was on stage, it's a different company now, it's a different leadership. A lot of people don't want to give them the chance. This is some examples of what I hope personally the industry will see is that they're really trying to be a different organization. And we're not trying to be a marketer. I mean, we're not going to be the marketer in this platform. We want our dealers to use their vendors to use the data. Not take it, but use it to get the results, which is the most important. And let us do what we do best, manage the data. Because Reynolds is, believe it or not, a very large data company.
Yes.
Another very important part of Curator that I think is really important for the industry to understand is that it was designed to empower, it was designed to measure, it was designed to optimize. What I found that I thought would be really instrumental to this platform are the key differentiators that we're going to share with you. And so, database segmentation. Curator, for all intents and purposes, database management meets the customer data platform so that you can measure retention, reactivation, which you can't see today in a lot of these tools. It has business insights and analytics because, the last time a dealer had a single source of truth, based on my age, was the 80s. And that was what they called the DMS. And today, when you fast forward to today, you got CRM, you got DMS, you got omni-channel mobile applications. So to have the CDP come back to life in this form and be able to have a single source of truth, and it's only being used for just the outbound marketing is where, in some of my previous comments, was the marketing hijacking the landscape of a CDP, or was it an automotive fumble because we preclude people from being able to connect the data? This was a big opportunity where if we build business insights and analytics, we can help dealers make better decisions. Attribution is another example where first-click attribution really drives a lot of bad decisions. Last-click attribution makes the person the smartest one in the room. And so having all this data in one place to be able to make these better decisions was part of the process. And another final one that I'll touch on is it's really in the data hygiene and the enrichment. If you're using a CDP, your data needs to be actionable. It has to be ready. And a lot of products I evaluated, their data had some sense of hygiene, but it didn't take the data hygiene to the level it needed to be with the enrichment of information so that if they held the title of the vehicle, their equity, you have their residential address, their commercial address, the email appends, the equity scored, all in the system ready to be used, not to be run, if that makes sense. So these were some of the core differentiators that we found to be real big benefits that would bring value to our partnership with Fullpath, for example. Moving on, the next piece, which I think is probably the most important, which I think is why Reynolds took its time to enter the space, is Curator, its entire mantra is to always be connecting the consumer experience. It doesn't matter where we are in the journey with a customer. And so the UCI engine is injecting the data. It's also writing back to our back office systems. So whether the phone rings, the door swings, you're in your inbox, you're in your work plan, we're connecting that consumer experience with the user. And it's really important when you look at the screen and you see how you have the CRM, these omni-channel tools, these retail tools, the DMS, all this information has different touch points across 5 different departments and hundreds of people. And having that information shared across your customers in a group so that, you know, Aaron comes into my store, I know everything about him from his address and every other dealership in our group. So he's new to my dealership, but not new to the group. That's just that's a simple, small example of the value that this brings. And so
what does it look like?
Well, let's introduce it here. So these are just some screenshots to give an example to really tease the industry and let them see something we hope you've never seen. So here's the first example, and this is live at a Focus today, where if you look on the right side of the screen, you pull up a customer record, and on the left side of the screen, we have injected through Curator everything about the customer. So as soon as you pull them up, it's going to tell you, for example, this customer has X amount of payments, here's the equity, here's what's in their garage, and here's the click activity they've been doing on the web. So highly relevant to when I pulled up this customer. And as you click through, you'll also be able to see all the transactional information across your group on this individual. You could see the opportunities, you could see what's in their garage, how many payments are left. I mean, this is information salespeople would love to have, but how long will it take to gather it all up? And then to be able to monitor what vehicles they're viewing, or how many times did somebody come back and look at a specific VIN, and how much time did they spend on that particular model, so you can measure intent. And then, of course, the sales enablement, right? I mean, you know, I love Fullpath sales enablement with their AI finding opportunities. And another big exciting piece was to be able to go from a plugin to embed it right into the customer record at the time that your people are pulling up the information. And they're not just looking at the customer record now, but they're now seeing opportunities that they haven't even become a lead yet. We've been able to identify, connect it with the user at the time that the user's logged in. So these are examples of being able to connect within the system.
By the way, those are talk tracks, those are message tracks, those are best offers that you might want to discuss with them. Some of which, by the way, has probably been used in outbound marketing, but you want the salesperson to see it all and to have it all right there in that heads-up view. And it's not just the salesperson, of course, it's also every aspect of the dealership, service lane, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, look, you take a phone up, then you're put into the BDC to set appointments, then there's inbound leads coming in. I mean, how many different times is that information vital at the time of interaction with a consumer in real time? That's essential. You know, here's another example where we talk about alerts where while you're working in your CRM, all of a sudden you get notified, hey, Curator just identified your customer is online right now looking at these cars, and here's how many payments he has left on the vehicle. I mean, it's easy to identify the IP address and connect it to the salesperson, but how do you engage them where they know? It's through this type of interaction. You want to say something?
No, that's great. Yeah, I think, by the way, these types of real-time intelligence are very common outside of automotive, right?
Right, and I want you to think about this. If the shoppers are on your website, high value, with rich information, we've never trained people or staffed our organizations for real-time retailing. So when I saw this, I was like, oh, this is great. I'm going to pull all these things together, and I love the AI prompts. This is how you could start a conversation. But then I just said, okay, we need to really rethink how our training is, because this is gold in the hands of someone who's been trained on how to leverage these tools.
Well, so I want to say something about that, because one of the gaps we've always struggled with, you know, as Fullpath, has always been that the work happens in CRM, and then we have a system which, for marketing automation purposes, data aggregate for research purposes, is great, because people will go into our dashboard to do that. And over time, we see more and more people going into the dashboard. But to get the sales machine, the sales force, to use the information we have, we did tests where we made Chrome plugin overlays so we could project into CRM information, and there we found people used it for the first time. If it's not there, then you have a challenge. And so we were able to prove before this partnership that actually this is the way to get the most value out of this information. And that's what's so revolutionary here. And I hope people realize it. Like, this is a major move by one of the biggest players in auto to deliver the data to the front lines. It's kind of like what happened in military circles, where once upon a time, if you wanted to call in, I hate to use these examples, but if you wanted to call in an airstrike, you had to like call someone, and like 3 hours later, someone would show up. Now it's all in a little computer everyone carries in the front line. And you throw up drones, you can tell your back office to do things, and it just happens. And I think that's what Reynolds has basically done, is they've put on the front lines a lot of the power. That will naturally lead to a process of the most successful people who start to use this stuff, showing everyone the way. Right. Because they're going to be incredibly successful. They're going to sell 5 more cars than their peer because they're using Curator. And that will drive the whole dealership to become, it's basically a behavioral modification engine in a lot of ways.
So let's talk about work plans.
Absolutely. So here's another example of when I talk about the connected consumer experience and engaging the user, and why, when I said that the definition of a CDP isn't just for outbound marketing. You know, imagine here where you're in your work plan and you're doing your phone call follow-up, and all of a sudden you pull up the customer record, and instead of going into the profile, you know, we're going to serve this information up on a silver platter, essentially, where on the right side you'll see our advisor, which is AI-driven, talking to you about this activity. Everything you need to know. Plus everything about the vehicles you might want to recommend, because we've read through the AI the vehicles they're viewing, the time they're spending on a car, so that we can help address the salesperson without even talking to them as a manager. It'll also pull up what's in their garage, their payments, their payoff, the lender, so that when I do click reply, the AI has already crafted a valued response that's accurately and effectively tied to their behavior. And it'll have the entire customer journey of what they did from the CDP at the bottom, so that I don't have to think about what to go do next. It's already coaching me step by step. That's an important aspect of the system, because we're now serving up information at the user level about a 6-month follow-up on a lease. How much time do you have to go spend to find out the payoff, the lender, how much payments are left? This is just an example. And then to be guided with what cars to talk about. Very, very important aspect of how to engage the user, which is why we spend a lot of time talking about connecting the experience. Another example would be in the inbox. I mean, this is one of my favorite, because you go into an inbox, and I mean, email alone already has an 80% failure rate just by missing messages. So when I pull up this message, instead of being taken into the inbox, once again, we're serving this email up on a silver platter, where, once again, the AI assistant is now telling me everything about this lead before I even read it. It's already telling me everything about the vehicles I should be considering. It's giving me everything about the garage once again. And it's giving me the entire journey that the customer has gone through, from an entire click activity, from an omni-channel conversation opportunity, from the lead opportunity, so that when you click reply, you've got a crafted response already generated inside the customer record, waiting for you to accept, edit, or submit. I like to say pick, click, submit. And so these are engagements.
So for some of you who really may not appreciate what's happening, people are waking up. The largest tech companies in automotive have realized that staying in silos has limited innovation. And we've talked about this for years. And I think there's a new awakening, is that the largest tech companies are probably the best at large-scale data management. Entrepreneurial companies that have worked with identity resolution, AI talk tracks, next best recommended actions. The only thing you needed was more data, Aharon, right? You had the tech. Brad saw it. You saw the partnership. But now what we're seeing is the CDP, that central source of truth, isn't a shiny object. We talked about this yesterday. It's not a joke. It's not even optional. When you can imagine now how richer your sales associates can be. Like, I think my son Connor's in the back helping out. He would never survive in a traditional set up, stand on the lot and run to the person who comes in. You give him technology. I see what he does when he's creating digital music, or when he's doing video. He can have stuff all over his screen. He would just like, give me the inputs. He would love something like this, which means there's a whole generation of kind of computer savvy, internet savvy, technology savvy young people coming into the workforce, and they're looking for a career. And you're going to tell them you can stand on the lot in the heat and smoke cigarettes and wait for people to come up, or I'm going to give you this dashboard, and when people come on the website and shopping, you can communicate with them, and actually it's going to tell you what to say. You don't have to be a car expert, and you can make over $100,000 a year. They'll be like, I'll take that job. And we're seeing the advent of true centralized data. Step one was marketing automation and smarter marketing. Now sales enablement. If you don't see it, it's going to change the way we operate.
It's connectedness.
I just want to say, we shouldn't be mistaken. I mean, we've all seen the wonders of GPT. This is not just GPT writing an email off of like a few data points in the CRM. It's not what it is. First of all, it's a very broad injection of insight and data across all the systems. But even the communications and the recommended communications are based on two things. One, vastly more data, but curated really well. And number two, based on a feedback loop of learning as to what succeeds and what fails. And this is the specialness behind it that I don't think there's, you could only do it when you're in this huge ecosystem that has all the connected points like Reynolds does. You can really build learnings around, okay, just putting in the offer of a payment change versus say special information versus say your equity position, what should be in the subject line, what is the best outreach line for a salesperson? And that information is gonna get fed back in here and again, drive the behavioral change for the team.
Yeah, I mean, what Aharon's saying, it's really, that's a very big takeaway today is with all the data coming back into the CDP and then it feeding into our UCI intelligence engine, our data only gets smarter, stronger, more effective every day. So over time, you only become more successful just because all the data you need from all your different touch points is accessible from the outbound marketing to when the phone rings, when the door swings, or when you're in your email or in your inbox or on your work plan. I repeat that because having this information evolve and get more effective every time I use it makes my job more effective and successful.
I'll tease it. I don't know if Brad's going to show it, but then when you start thinking about aggregate analytics and insights as future stuff, it becomes absolutely insane.
So we're not going to show that on the stage, but we will have time to do that privately. Would you please give Aharon and Brad a big round of applause? Thank you, guys. Thank you.